This is the story of how a Rust Belt city that once powered the entire American Industrial Revolution ended up so hollowed out that a state official literally suggested it would be cheaper to abandon it than to save it. Scranton, Pennsylvania. The Electric City. At its peak, this place ranked as America's 55th largest city, home to nearly 150,000 people. The city produced a third of the nation's silk, ran one of the biggest steel plants in the country, and sat on top of 95% of the Western Hemisphere's highest-grade coal. Today, it is America's 488th largest city. Nearly half its population has vanished. A third of its children live in poverty, and the ground beneath it is still literally caving in. Most people know Scranton from two things: Joe Biden and The Office. But the real story of this city runs so much darker and so much more tragic than a sitcom about a paper company could ever suggest. It starts in 1840. George and Selden Scranton rolled in from New Jersey, bought most of what's now downtown for $8,000, and started smelting iron. That's it. That's how fast empires used to begin. Within 2 decades, their Lackawanna Iron and Coal Company became America's first company to mass-produce T-rails for the expanding railroad network, connecting to the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad system. Underneath all of it sat anthracite coal, 7 billion short tons of it, the densest, hottest-burning coal on Earth. By 1900, the city had crossed 100,000 residents. By 1917, the mines were pulling 100 million tons of anthracite out of the ground every single year. 330,000 miners across the region produced coal worth over $700 million. This was the era when labor tensions in Pennsylvania's coal fields ran so hot that secret societies like the Molly Maguires had already written their violent chapter in the region's history. The Scranton Lace Company was the world's largest producer of Nottingham lace. The steel plant ranked among the nation's biggest. Electric lights arrived in 1880, making Scranton one of America's first cities to run electric streetcars. They didn't just call it the Electric City for fun. This place genuinely stood on the cutting edge of American progress. And then, piece by piece, it all fell apart. The first blow was one nobody could fight. After World War II, America moved on from coal. Oil and natural gas proved cleaner, easier to transport, and more convenient. While the rest of the country rode the post-war economic boom into suburban prosperity, Scranton and its twin city Wilkes-Barre started bleeding. Even during the Korean War, when military spending juiced the national economy, Scranton and Wilkes-Barre were 2 of the only areas in the entire country with unemployment rates above 12%. The boom passed them by completely. But if the energy transition was a slow bleed, what came next was a knife through the heart. January 22nd, 1959. The Knox mine disaster. The Knox Coal Company had been mining underneath the Susquehanna River. Pennsylvania law said you could not mine within 35 feet of a riverbed. Knox came within 19 inches. They blew right past the mapped stop lines, drilling deeper and closer than anyone was ever supposed to go. That January morning, the river punched through the mine ceiling and 10 billion gallons of water came roaring into the tunnels below. 12 men died. Their bodies were never recovered. They are still down there. One miner survived because he remembered what the old-timers always said about the rats. When the rats start running, you run too. His daughter later recalled how he dropped his tools the moment he saw them scampering past at breakneck speed. A man named Amedeo Pancotti climbed 50 feet up an abandoned air shaft to alert rescuers, earning the Carnegie Medal and helping save 33 lives, including his own. But the disaster did not just kill 12 men. It killed an industry. The investigations that followed ripped the lid off a system rotten to its core. The mine owners, the union president, company engineers, all got indicted. The union boss, August Lippy, turned out to be secretly co-owning the very mining company he was supposed to be negotiating against, a direct violation of federal labor law. The whole thing was tangled up with organized crime. Although convictions were handed down, every single one was eventually overturned on appeal. The immediate economic damage was staggering. An estimated 7,500 jobs vanished, directly and indirectly. $32 million in payroll just disappeared from the local economy. The major coal companies abandoned the region entirely. Employment in the mines dropped from tens of thousands to roughly 8,000 by 1960, and kept falling until it bottomed out at around 500. The last mine operations in Lackawanna County closed for good in 1973. Meanwhile, just 50 miles south, the coal town of Centralia was dealing with its own nightmare, an underground coal fire that's been burning since 1962, eventually forcing the entire town to be abandoned. Here's what makes Scranton's story truly unique among declining American cities. The mines did not just take the jobs when they left, they took the ground itself. Underneath Scranton sits a labyrinth of abandoned tunnels and voids, carved out over more than a century of relentless extraction. In 1909, a schoolhouse in West Scranton collapsed into the earth from subsidence. In 1919, whole rows of buildings in Hyde Park crumbled as sidewalks buckled, and sewer, gas, and water lines burst open. In 1993, a 7-story apartment building housing 150 elderly residents was damaged by a mine subsidence event. This is not ancient history. Pennsylvania's abandoned mine agency responded to 578 subsidence events between 2017 and 2024. The state's mine subsidence insurance program has paid out over $47 million in homeowner claims since 1961. The Wall Street Journal once described Scranton as being built on toothpicks. In 1970, the Secretary of Mines for Pennsylvania said the quiet part out loud. He suggested it would be more economical to simply abandon the city than to try to make the underground voids safe. Think about that. A state official looked at an American city of tens of thousands of people and said it might be easier to just walk away. They didn't walk away. But what followed was decades of slow-motion financial collapse. The silk mills moved south or overseas. The steel plant had already been relocated to Buffalo by its New York owners, part of the same industrial exodus that would eventually claim giants like Bethlehem Steel across Pennsylvania. Political infighting paralyzed city government. In 1992, Scranton entered Act 47, Pennsylvania's official designation of financial distress. It would stay there for 30 years. By 2012, the city was approaching complete insolvency. City workers were temporarily paid minimum wage. Debt ballooned to an estimated $300 million. Public assets were sold off. Pensions went chronically underfunded. In 2014, the budget included a 57% property tax hike and a 69% increase in garbage fees just to close a $20 million deficit. By 2016, Scranton's credit rating had sunk to junk level. Today, 28% of Scranton's residents live below the poverty line, nearly 60% higher than the state average. The median household income is just over $50,000. The homeownership rate sits below 50% in a city where houses were once the bedrock of working-class wealth. But there is, against all odds, a different chapter being written. In January 2022, Scranton officially exited Act 47 after exactly 30 years. Mayor Paige Cognetti, the city's first woman mayor, called it an enormous lift off their shoulders. By 2024, the city's credit rating had jumped 2 full grades to BBB+, an uncommon leap for any municipality. In April 2025, Scranton received the Secretary's Award for Municipal Excellence from the state. New industries are trickling in: biomaterials, medical manufacturing, and product recycling. As Bob Gattens of the Municipal Recreation Authority put it, the mining might have scarred the land, might have left bad water they're still dealing with, but it shaped this city, this county, and everything around it. It put food on the table. Scranton is still 47% smaller than it was in 1930. Its pensions are still underfunded. The ground beneath it is still riddled with voids that can open up without warning. But the city is still there, still standing on its toothpicks. And if nothing else, That stubborn refusal to disappear might be the most Scranton thing about it.